Theek High, main 10,000 words, key cinematic first-person script KO, multiple parts main donga. Yeah, Raha Part 1, Lagpag. 1,300 plus words. Jab Kahoj, Agla Hissa Bej Dunga. I used to measure a day by how far the sunlight crawled across my kitchen table. Morning slipped in as a pale stripe on the oilcloth. Noon flooded the salt shaker until it glittered. And by evening, the light curled up on the far edge like a tired cat. That was before my son decided I needed managing. Before papers with my name on them stopped feeling like mine. Before the word mother turned into a minor role in a play he directed from a room with glass walls and a view of other people's victories. Now I measure a day by the quiet, how long it lasts, what it costs, and what it gives back when you sit still enough to hear it breathing. I am 75, and if you ask my bones, I am a century and a half. Still, I have my walk small steps, toes first. A rhythm I learned from years of stone floors, linoleum seams, and a lifetime of not wanting to wake anyone I loved. I talk to the kettle when it sings, to the clock when it sulks, to the soft sag in the sofa where my husband used to lean as if the evening were listening only to him. He's been gone long enough that even my grief learned manners. It waits its turn. It lets me steep my tea. People think old age is a shrinking, like a sweater washed too hot. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's an expansion. You can't see rooms inside rooms. Memory halls lit by little lamps. I walk them at night, those halls. I pass the door where my boy practiced spelling with a pencil stub. I pass the mirror that once caught me in a yellow dress, breathless from dancing in our tiny living room with a record skipping under a coin. I pass the cupboard that held birthday plates for a child who believed cake could fix anything. I stop at the window that remembers the exact sound a bus makes when it pulls away. With someone you love on it, he had a kind face once, round and quick to smile. He'd bring home stones that looked like eggs and insist they were magic. He'd sleep mouth open, hand fanned on his chest like a promise. I raised him on thrift and thunder. Thrift because bills don't care about your poetry. Thunder because he needed the kind that shakes the dust off your courage. I stitched a future out of coupons, double shifts, and the stubborn notion that my child would never mistake poverty for destiny. When he said he wanted the law, I felt the old house shift, as if the walls leaned in to hear. The number the college wanted was obscene. I paid it in pieces, sold trinkets with stories. Took night work that taught my knees a new language. Ate soup I watered down with hope. I pressed crisp shirts for a boy who would learn how to press judges with sentences. I ironed collars while rehearsing his arguments to the cat, who never objected. He was good. God help me. He was better than good. Words bent for him. Doors opened and forgot to squeak. He sent me photos of rooms where the windows were so clean they held the sky like a bowl. He sent less of himself. Calls shortened. Visits thinned. Pride has a strange appetite. It eats and leaves you hungry anyway. I kept feeding it because that's what mothers do. We turn our days into kindling and hope. Our children's fires remember to warm us back. The day the ground tipped was not dramatic. No thunder, no revelation. Just a lobby where the floor was polished enough to make you careful about the secrets you dropped. I went there with a letter I didn't fully understand about insurance and a back that had started to sound like broadcast static when I stood too fast. He descended from an elevator, like a thought he didn't have time to finish. 10 minutes, he said, like the kindest thing. He leaned in and smelled the air around me as if memory were an odor that might embarrass him. I told him about rent, about the letter, about a pill that was too strong and a pain that was stronger. He looked at my hands the way people look at maps they don't intend to follow. Ma, he said, a soft knife of a syllable. I have clients watching. You can't just show up. There's image. He tacked on a smile to make the sentence polite. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a bill. Crisp and get something for your back, he murmured, his eyes already on the elevator, where a silver panel displayed numbers climbing the way I once imagined he would. I held that bill like a small, frightened bird. I wanted to tell him about the ledger that still lives in my drawer, careful as a hymn. Every tuition payment, written down with the date and the prayer I stapled to it. Every bus pass, every pair of good shoes I bought him even when my own heels talked back to me at night. Instead, I folded the money in half, then in half again, and slid it into my pocket like a secret I never wanted. I watched the elevator doors close on the pinch of his mouth. The lobby hummed with other people's important footsteps. Mine found the sidewalk and then home, and then the chair by the window, where the afternoon looks like forgiveness if you squint. That night, I boiled potatoes for dinner, and the water hissed over like a temper I do not allow myself. I turned the burner down and listened to the low growl of the kettle. familiar and honest. I thought about the words he used. Client's image. Can't, and the words he didn't. Thanks. Sit. Tell me everything. I thought about the time he scraped his knee on the stoop and refused to cry until I said it was allowed. And then he howled like a small storm. You cannot teach a boy it is safe to cry and then ask his mother not to bleed. But here we were. When the tea cooled, I called a name I hadn't said out loud in years. Not his. Hers. Aurelia. She was a lanky child once in the pew, second from the back. Knee socks with a permanent sag, a brain you could hear ticking. She used to linger after Sunday school to ask questions about parables and whether figs tasted like fig cookies. Now she had a phone line that answered with a receptionist and a kind of rasp at the end of her laugh that said life had punched her too, and she learned to breathe around the fist. Come in tomorrow, she said, no fuss. Bring your papers. Bring your patience. My papers live in a biscuit tin with a lid that fits just so. I took out the ledger, the stack of receipts gone brittle at the edges. The letter about a benefit that isn't much but is something like a dandelion stubborn in a crack. I slept badly and woke early and walked to the bus with the tin in a tote and the tote in my left hand so it wouldn't pull on the right shoulder that tends to sulk. The driver nodded, the way old bus drivers nod. Like a blessing you didn't ask for but needed. Aurelia's office was high enough to make the city look polite. She met me in the hall in flats, not the noisy heels the magazines tell lady lawyers to wear, and hugged me like a person, not a client. Her desk was clear except for a potted plant with a stake holding it steady and a cider-colored mug that said keep receipts in a font that wanted to be your friend. I put the biscuit tin between us like an offering. We did not start with law. We started with the boy. I told her about pebbles shaped like birds' eggs, about a child who collected smooth things and kept them cool in his pocket as if softness could save the day. I told her about the first time a teacher said gifted, and how the word made me feel like I could stand up straighter without growing taller. I told her about bus pass, math and soup stretching and the way a mother learns to make a holiday out of a Wednesday if that's what her child needs. Then we talked about the lobby, and the bill, and the loneliness that sits beside you at night as if it brought dessert. Aurelia listened the way some people pray with their whole body. When I was done, she lifted the tin's lid as if it might sing. It did. In its waypaper rustle, staple chirp, ink remembering what it was written for. She laid things in a line like beads she meant to thread into something sharp. You have a record, she said. You have a story. The law's not lovely here, but it's not blind either. We'll write a letter. We'll make it so clean he can see himself in it. What if he won't look? I asked. Then we hold it in front of other eyes, she said, and let reflection do its work. The letter was a marvel, gentle as a knock, firm as a latch. It named the money without shaming it. It asked for a monthly support amount that would not wound him but would stop the slow hemorrhage in me. It asked that he put in writing the thing he hadn't said with his mouth, that I mattered. It gave him 2 weeks to grow a spine where his pride had been. We sent it certified. I thought that word would comfort me. It didn't. It felt like a doorbell in a rainstorm, polite and useless. Still, I waited. Waiting is a craft in age. You learn to knit it into something you can hold. He called on day 3. What do you want from me? He asked, skirting hello. To be remembered, I said. This isn't how you do it, he snapped. You don't ambush your family with counsel. This isn't family, I said, and hated myself a little for the truth of it. This is a woman at a window with a debt ledger and a back that won't behave. This is a son with a salary. This is math, baby. He laughed the way people laugh when they're out of jokes. We'll see you in court, then. We will, I said, and set the phone down as if it might bruise. Court is a long hallway where time wears sensible shoes. We filed. He countered. Papers went back and forth like chess pieces played by people too tired to win stylishly. Aurelia kept me fed, nuts in a pocket, tea in a thermos. Encouragement in small tidy sentences that didn't pretend I wasn't scared. The judge wore glasses that made everyone behave. My boy's lawyer was the kind of man who believed volume could replace virtue. He asked me if I expected a return on investment for motherhood. No, I said, just a receipt. The judge suppressed a smile. My boy didn't. He stared at the table leg like it had failed him. Personally, somewhere in their day 2 or 3 of drafts and affidavits and smelling other people's coffee, I realized revenge was a story that ends hungry. What I wanted was quieter and more stubborn. I wanted a boundary with hinges and a bell. I wanted a check that arrived because the world said it must, and maybe, later, because a heart said it should. I wanted to be able to buy peaches without counting coins. I wanted to wake and not prepare arguments while buttering toast. I wanted to be old in peace. The order, when it came, did not arrive with trumpets. It came stapled. Monthly support at a number that made my shoulders consider dropping. Reimbursement for a portion of tuition, nodding to the ledger even as it could not bow low enough. A written apology, not the kind you pin on a fridge, but the kind the law can point to and say see. Mandatory mediation, focused on elder respect. I had never seen those words together, and I liked the way they sat. That night, I cooked beans with a ham bone and let the pot talk to the room. Steam caught the light and turned it into something I could almost eat. I took the crisp bill from my drawer, the one from the lobby, still folded, still small, and set it beside the stove. I did not hate it. I did not love it. I told it we were done. In the morning, I went to the market with a taller list. Milk, bread, peaches. If they smelled like July, a new sponge. A magazine with recipes I would dog-ear and not make. On the walk home, a sparrow landed on the lid of my biscuit tin where it peeked from the tote. It tapped once, like a judge whose patience is both infinite and finished. I laughed out loud. It startled me how much I still had of that sound. When the apology letter came, it was careful. Whoever wrote it had worked hard to make it feel like it came from a heart, not a conference room. My boy had signed it. His signature looked almost like the one he'd scrawled on construction paper notes when he was 10. Dear Ma, I'll buy you a house one day. Back then he dotted his I like a balloon. Now it was a period, neat and final. I pressed my thumb to the ink, not to blur it, just to tell the paper a human had arrived. In the weeks after, the checks landed when they were supposed to. The ledger got a new page, deposits from clean as a field after rain. I let myself buy a dress that felt like a kind comment. I let myself say no to a shift without inventing a fever. I sat to afternoons with my neighbor's little girl while her mother interviewed for a job. We built a fort with every chair in the house and called it a law library. Then whispered our best arguments under a blanket that smelled like sun. When the girl asked what a precedent is, I said, it's a story the world likes so much it tells it again. Sometimes you have to hand it a better story. I do not know if mine is better. I know it is mine. I know the kitchen clock has started remembering its tick and the kettle's whistle makes the cat flick his ear the way he always has. I know the afternoons are long enough to hold a nap and a book and a call from a friend who begins with I was just thinking of you. Like a door opening in the right kind of weather. I know I can stand at my window, at dusk, and watch the city turn itself down without feeling like a lamp someone forgot to plug in. And when the phone rings, and it is him, and he says hello in that careful way as if the word might explode, I answer. I keep my sentences short, and my kindness is plain. Once, he says he tried the peaches and they were as good as I said. Once he asks how my back is and waits for the answer. Once, he tells me he saw a little boy on a bus clutching a rock like an egg and thought of, and then he stops. I let the silence be the bridge. Maybe he'll cross tomorrow. Maybe he won't. Either way, I have my side. It's swept, it's warm, it's mine. There's a strange kind of quiet that comes after justice. It isn't loud, or proud, or full of applause. It's a hush that feels like snowfall, the kind that covers everything you thought you'd lost beneath a new, pale beginning. That's what I live inside now. The days are simple again, but not small. They hum softly, like the last note of a song that refuses to die. I wake early, out of habit more than need. The air has a weightless chill that makes my lungs work a little harder, which is good, it reminds me I'm still here. My knees complain when I bend for the kettle, and I tell them, as I always do, you've done your time, loves. We're not scrubbing any more marble lobbies. They creak back at me, like old friends. Maybe they forgive me. To dot the settlement, money sits where it should, quietly. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't mock, it just arrives on time, like an apology learning to walk. Sometimes I open my little notebook and trace the neat rows of figures, not for greed, but gratitude. Every number means something small but holy. A doctor's visit without shame, a full tank of heat in winter, a new pair of slippers that don't remember bleach. I still clean though. Old habits don't vanish, they retire gently. I take care of my own home the way a woman tends a memory. There's satisfaction in polish, in watching light move across a surface you've made honest again. Maybe that's why I never stopped. Maybe all these years, I was really just trying to polish a world that forgot how to shine. Some evenings, I sit on the stoop with my neighbor's little girl, Clara. She's 7, full of questions that never quite wait their turn. She asks about stars, about why cats blink so slow, about why grown-ups sigh so much. I tell her stories, not fairy tales, but true ones disguised with gentle edges. She likes the one about the woman who planted a single sunflower in a parking lot crack. and how it grew taller than every car around it. Did the cars get jealous? She asks every time. And every time, I tell her, no, sweetheart, they were just surprised to see beauty where they never looked before. She giggles, and I laugh, and sometimes that laughter shakes a tear loose, but I don't wipe it fast anymore. Some tears deserve to breathe. My boy hasn't visited, not yet, but he calls now and then. The first few times, it was all tension and paperwork, talk transfer dates, confirmations, tone polished flat as glass. Then one evening, his voice softened, uncertain, like a man stepping into a dark room trying to remember where the light switch is. He asked if I still made those lemon biscuits. I said yes, though my hands aren't steady enough to roll them thin anymore. He said he'd forgotten how they smelled. I told him he hadn't. Memory hides, but it doesn't die. I don't ask for more. I let him come when he can, or not at all. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a gift you give the other person. It's a key that unlocks your own ribs so you can breathe again. Sometimes at night, I hear the rain against the tin roof and think of the old office building where I used to work. The sound was always the same, steady, merciless, cleansing. I'd mop the same floor over and over, and for years I believed it was the most thankless work in the world. But now I see the poetry in it. You clean what others dirty. You turn chaos into reflection. You leave behind a place better than you found it. Tell me what greater purpose there is. One morning last month, a letter arrived with a return address I didn't recognize. The paper smelled faintly of cedar and cold ink. Inside was a single-page no header. No fancy seal. Just words written by a man who finally ran out of armor. Greater than ma. Greater than I don't know how to start this. Every sentence sounds like it's apologizing for being late. I've been angry for reasons I can't defend. Proud for achievements I didn't earn alone. You were right. I was built by your hands, not mine. Every deal I've won, every case I've argued, has your calluses underneath it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll let me bring coffee instead of judgment. Greater than Jeremiah read it once, then again, then folded it carefully and placed it in the biscuit tin beside the old ledger and the framed $20 bill. Maybe one day I'll write back. Maybe silence is reply enough. I don't need to be the mother who wins. I only need to be the woman who survived the loss of being one. The seasons turn more slowly now. Autumn lingers like a guest too polite to leave. I walk to the park with a cane that clicks like punctuation on the pavement. Children chase each other through the leaves, and I think how easily joy forgives noise. I sit on a bench near the pond where geese quarrel about everything. I throw them crumbs and tell them they sound just like lawyers. They don't laugh, but I do. There's a nurse named Amira who visits twice a week. Though I tell her I don't need minding, she insists anyway. She brings stories from the world outside my window: weddings, street fairs, stray cats rescued by kind hands. She says she likes my company, that the tea here tastes like her grandmother's. I tell her the secret is patience, not sugar. We've made a ritual of it. She talks, I listen, we both heal a little. Sometimes she reads to me from the newspaper. The other day, she mentioned an article about a young lawyer being passed over for partnership because of personal scandals. She didn't notice me pause mid-sip. I didn't ask for the name. Some truths are softer when you don't confirm them. When she leaves, I sit by the window again and look at the streetlights blinking on one by one, little halos for ordinary people. I think about legacy. Everyone wants to leave something behind: money, reputation, buildings with their names on plaques. But maybe legacy isn't about permanence. Maybe it's about how you treat people when no one writes it down. Maybe it's about the way you hand the broom to someone younger and tell them, kindly, start from the corner. That's where the light falls first. There are nights when sleep tiptoes past me. I lie awake and let my mind wander through old rooms. I see Samuel, my husband, reading by the lamplight, glasses sliding down his nose. I see young Jerome in his school tie, tongue peeking out as he ties a knot. I see myself, younger but already old with worry, folding a shirt that smelled of starch and future. All of them live here, in this house, in me. Time doesn't evict anyone. It just rearranges the furniture. If I could speak to the girl I once was, the one bent over the sink with water up to her elbows and hope up to her throat, I'd tell her this: love fiercely, but keep a little peace for yourself. Not because others will break it, but because you'll need it to rebuild when they do. I'd tell her pride isn't a sin if it's clean, and that revenge, no matter how righteous, should end before it turns you into what you're fighting. Mostly, I'd tell her that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's choosing not to live inside someone else's shadow. Now and then, Jerome's calls last longer. He tells me about cases, about the sleeplessness that comes with ambition. He asks for my advice in ways that sound like stories, as if he's too shy to ask directly. I give it in teaspoons, not sermons. I tell him clients are like stains, you can't scrub them angry. You have to let the soap sit a while. He laughs, really laughs, and I hear the boy in it again. It's strange how laughter can be both a wound and a salve. Last week, he said he might visit. I didn't believe him at first, but on Sunday the bell rang. And there he was, thinner, paler, but standing on my porch like a man who'd finally found the right address. He held out a bag of groceries. Didn't know what you needed, he said. So I brought everything. I wanted to tell him I needed nothing, but I couldn't lie with that much grace. I made tea. We sat. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was learning to breathe, like a newborn. He looked around the small kitchen, the framed bill, the tin, the lemon biscuits cooling on the rack. He smiled at the smell. Still using that old recipe? He asked. I nodded. Some things don't improve with change, I said. He chuckled softly. Guess that includes mothers. We didn't talk about the lawsuit. Not once. We didn't have to. Some apologies are made of shared air, not words. When he left, he kissed my forehead like a promise. I stood at the door, long after the night swallowed his tail. The street was wet, shining, clean. The kind of clean you don't get from soap, but from storms that know when to stop. Later, as I lay in bed, I thought about endings. People think they come with clarity, with closure tied up neat as a ribbon. They don't, they come quietly, disguised as an ordinary night when the lamp hums, the heart settles, and you realize you're no longer rehearsing your pain. That's the mercy of it. That's the miracle. Tomorrow I'll wake to another slow sunrise crawling across my kitchen table. The world will look exactly the same and feel entirely new. I'll make tea, talk to the kettle, feed the cat, and maybe write a note I'll never send. Asterisk, Dear Jerome, we both learned the law of love the hard way. It's never about winning. It's about learning when to rest your case. Asterisk, and when the light curls up on the far edge again, tired and golden, I'll whisper to it, we did all right, didn't we? There's a tenderness that only comes with endings, like the hush before a candle sighs itself out. I live in that hush now, not lonely, not waiting, just present. Morning slips through the curtains in ribbons, and the dust dances like tiny saints in the light. I used to chase those specks with a rag, but now I let them spin. Maybe that's how peace arrives, not with grand declarations, but with permission to let small things be. The town's slower these days. The bakery on the corner changed hands. The new boy burns the first batch every morning, and the smell still makes the air sweet. The postman's grown softer to his beard, streaked with silver, his whistle more tired. I've watched the world age beside me, and somehow that feels like company. I've taken to writing again, not stories, not prayers, just fragments of thought on scraps of paper. I tuck them into the pages of books, under saucers, inside the folds of old letters. Little whispers I leave for no one in particular. One says, kindness echoes longer than cruelty. Another, pride is a wall that hides your own hunger. Some nights, I imagine Jerome finding one someday, reading it without realizing who wrote it. That's enough. There's a new cat now, a stray with the kind of arrogance that makes you forgive him immediately. He's white, with one gray ear, and I named him Finch after the firm because even arrogance deserves redemption. He sleeps by the heater and dreams loudly, paws twitching like he's arguing in court. Sometimes I tell him my verdicts. He never objects. Winter returned last week, crisp and honest. I pulled the old coat from the hook, the same one I wore that day in the lobby. It still carries a faint trace of bleach and something else. Defiance. I wore it on purpose when Jerome visited again. This time, he didn't come empty. He brought soup, his own recipe, over-seasoned and earnest. He watched me eat like a student waiting for a grade. Too much salt, I said. He smiled. I'll try again next time. And there it was, that word. Next. A bridge built from 3 letters. We sat together longer this time. He told me about a pro bono case he'd taken an old janitor wrongfully dismissed. He said it reminded him of someone. He didn't look at me when he said it, but he didn't have to. I could feel the apology sitting quietly between us, patient as breath. I told him I was proud. I meant it, not for the case, but for the courage it takes to look back without flinching. He nodded, swallowed, and said, "You always were the better lawyer." I laughed so hard my chest hurt. The sound felt like youth trying to sneak back in. Later, when he left, he kissed the crown of my head and whispered, "I'll call tomorrow." I didn't answer. I just squeezed his hand. Some promises you don't test. You let them rest where they land. That night, I sat at the table and laid everything out: the ledger, the framed bill, the letter, his note. I ran my hand over each one, then closed the tin for good. The lid clicked like punctuation at the end of a very long sentence. I thought about Samuel, then my husband, my dreamer. What he'd say if he could see all this. I think he'd smile that quiet smile of his and say, Hazel, you did what needed doing. And you didn't lose your softness doing it. And that, more than anything, feels like victory. When I dream now, it's not of courts or lobbies or harsh words. It's of small things: a clean floor, sunlight on soap bubbles, Jerome as a boy handing me a dandelion-like treasure. Sometimes he says, I found this for you. Sometimes I say, you always did. I don't believe in fairy tales anymore, but I do believe in balance: the slow, invisible kind that life builds when no one's watching. The kind that takes everything from you, piece by piece, until one morning it gives it back as peace. Tomorrow is Sunday. Clara's coming to bake cookies, and Jerome might stop by if he keeps his word. I'll wear the yellow dress with the loose buttons. I've mended it too many times to give up now. Maybe we'll eat on the porch if the sun behaves. Maybe we'll just sit in the silence that love leaves when it finally grows up, and when evening slides in, soft and deliberate, I'll pour the last cup of tea and say it out loud. Because some words need witnesses. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without bleeding. Then I'll turn off the lamp, let the house listen to its own heartbeat, and whisper one final verdict to the dark. We did all right, after all.